Peace, peace.
Blessed love, family.
Shabbat shalom. How's everybody doing?
Happy Yom Shishi.
Yeah, so coming at the end of another Shavuot. Here we are again. Shema Anu. Of course, I am Achi Antonio, and this is my cousin Abba Cruz.
Baba Cruz, that's me.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we're gonna give it a little bit for everybody to file in, and while we're waiting, we're going to acknowledge the 20-second delay, and we also want to go over a reading of the preface.
Yeah, man. First, we want to officially open the space and send powerful affirmation and glory to the great Bosai. Yeah. We also want to say, give thanks and glory to the great Baba Chief Yuya Hassan Anu, the Chief Chagna of Anu Life Global Ministries, who has allowed the foundation of this space to exist, and who's teaching us continually the calculations of what it means to be people from heaven. So we give thanks to you, Baba Chief. And yeah, man, affirmation always. Give thanks for the provision that you continually make for us. So with the reading of the preface, we're going to say a condensed version, or recite a condensed version. This book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with the Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. Chief Yuya Hassan Anu. Yes. Yeah, man. So we give thanks for that. We got some people in the building. Emma Kuya. What you say? Naya. Yes, my sister.
Peace, welcome. Yeah, so we're continuing with courting, the chapter on family, and we're going to read 3 paragraphs because we actually skipped 2 of them. So we're going to circle back, and the sisters had done a wonderful reading and breakdown, and a wonderful build on section on the length of time that you're reporting. So we're going to circle back to the paragraph that directly follows how you submit your courtship papers, which is, of course, you submit it in writing.
Naturally.
And then after that, Chief gets into, the permission, who can prevent you from courting or who has no right to prevent you from courting.
Yeah.
And then we get into, whether or not you should even make your courtship publicly known. Should people know that you're in the process of courting someone?
Yeah, man. If y'all would just ride with us, I know Aki just pointed out that we're going to be looking at 3 paragraphs, rewinding and going to the 2 paragraphs prior to the sisters, breakdown last week, and then also the paragraph which would be after. But I think for those of you, especially in YouTube land, who may be following us in archives, 20 years from now, it'd be good for us to actually put it in context. So if you ride with us, what I'm going to do, I'm going to read those 2 paragraphs along with the paragraph that the sisters went over last week, and the one that we would be covering under communication, just to kind of put it into context, just to make sure nothing gets lost in the fray or the distance of time from last week to now, or last strong to now. So the paragraph is as read, or the paragraphs are as read. Courtship is not subject to the approval of anyone, elder or the like. There is no one in Anu who has the authority to prevent individuals from mating other than the guardians and parents of those individuals if they are still functioning under the covering of their guardian parent. Courtships need not be announced to the community. In truth, it is better to court in private. Betrothal should be announced, but courtship should be given an insulation from the eyes of those who may have formed an unjust opinion about either party. It is important that the self-worth of all participants is kept intact. Length of time. Courtship should be no shorter than 3 months and no longer than 9 months. It is imperative to court through the seasons. Some people experience periodic changes that ought to be witnessed. They may be melancholic in the winter, but during the springtime, they are euphoric. You should allow yourself at least one seasonal change to transpire during your courtship. If you are unfocused on your courtship goals, the process will be too long. If your courtship is too short, you can be fooled by the enrapturing of a new person and experience. You are spending the rest of your life with this person, and you will be one flesh. If 3 to 9 months of discovery is too much for you to suffer, then you are probably not ready for a long-term commitment. Communication. During a courtship, communication should be limited to 15 minutes per day. If you can start at 15 minutes and sculpt down to 5 minutes, you are doing a worthy thing. The first communication of the day should be either face-to-face or voice-to-voice. Do not let the very first communication of the day be a written one. I can say that again, especially for those of us living in 2021, right? Do not let the very first communication of the day be a written one. An excess of digitally written communication leads to passive aggressiveness. On that note, we got a question for you.
Yeah. So the first question is, how much can you learn about a person in 15 minutes? Yeah, so think about maximizing your time during these calls. So let's say this is your first call. Like, how much can you really get to know this person? And how much fluff, in comparison to a regular conversation or the average conversation when you're trying to get to know someone, how much fluff would you have to cut out in order to get to as our crews would say, hummus and potatoes of who this person really is, who and what this person is. So I'll put that question in the chat.
Naturally.
In the meantime, we can start from the first sentence, which is courtship is not subject to the approval of anyone, elder or the like.
Yeah, now, one of the key reasons why I really, really wanted us to go back over the full body of information is because now we're looking at foundation, right? So how you start something will really determine how the process will end. So you want to look at the two contexts. How would you maximize on your courtship, your experience of discovery, sculpting down from 15 minutes to 5 minutes a day, 3 to 9 months? How will you maximize the most efficiency out of that process if you're doing it on your own in comparison to if you have a chaperone? And you want to be honest with yourself here. Is it possible? Can you really, really be as disciplined? And on this here, we'll pull from the vein of the Solutions for Dysfunctional Family work that Chief did, where on page 99 through 101, it speaks to this process of, in the midst of the courtship after Nile and Kenya actually embark on the journey with the chaperoning of Barbara Freeman and Marvin Freeman. They were adults, they were functioning professionals, raising funds for the community, instrumental in the work of the community, but yet they still sought the objective advice and insight of two elders who they respected. And though it's not subject to the approval of anyone, you want to firstly ask yourself, why is that institution at play anyway? And this we can pull off of numerous segments that Chief has done. One particular, which is self-initiation or spiritual guide, where Chief speaks to there is validity and merit in self-initiation, but the true rites of passage, who's really observing that? Who's really observing that? So you want to be very careful when want to be very careful when we take positions as far as what we don't need. We touched on that a couple of strongs ago when we were actually speaking about we asked the question directly, do you trust your elders enough to actually, assist you with this process?
Right.
So, most cases, the truth is most of us really outside of, we're in adulthood now, we don't really answer to too many people outside of certain contexts. So why would we make that decision to come back? Is it that we know that maybe we need some assistance? You want to be very, very grounded in that mindset. And then also think about what it is that you're creating for your homestead. next generation. What it is do you really want for your children? Most of us may have started that process already. We realized that we skipped some steps and possibly we meandered along the way. And in attempt to bring ourselves into alignment, we have to redo certain things. Now, in that redo process, do we make some of the same, missteps or pivots? Do we put things in place now that our children who may be of age that they can witness certain things are actually able to observe a level of functionality? I don't know if there's anything you want to.
Right. Just to piggyback on what you were saying, even when you go back to revisit some of those steps you might have skipped, are there going to be steps that you skip again? Are there some things that you won't, like, you may not be able to get to everything before you have children? Is that going to be a possibility? More than likely, if you try to do it alone. This is why you have chaperones, to give you that objective, feedback, to let you know what you're doing and what you're not doing, to let you know what kind of pathologies you might be harboring that you may have blinded yourself to, or convinced yourself that it has its origin somewhere else. You start projecting, and you project these issues onto someone who may no longer be in your life, like the sister in the book, Kenya.
Yep.
She projected a certain idea of what happened to her family that split her parents up, and she projected it onto her father. Her father's not in her life, so how is she gonna resolve that? Are those residual feelings going to be passed down through her blood? Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, speaking of people who don't necessarily get everything they need from break, from jump, they're going to be mating late. They're going to start courting late, well into adulthood. So the next line has a particular level of significance to that sort of situation. So there is no one in Anu who has the authority to prevent individuals from mating, other than the guardians and parents of those individuals, if they are still functioning under the covering of their guardian/parent. So you can underline the words, if they are still functioning, under that covering. At a certain age, you're going to move from under the cover, if you're a man, under the covering of your parents into a level of adulthood. At a certain age, you as a woman, once you've gone through your rights, are going to be moving from your father to your mate. So how many of us have been out here without really having experienced that smooth transition from childhood to adulthood, and then going through this next rites of passage, which is matehood?
Yeah, it's interesting how Chief opens up that particular line. There is no one in Anu who has the authority to prevent individuals from mating, other than the guardians or parents, right? So, think about that process now as far as what it is that we're here for. If we're a ministry of service, we're a ministry that is directly engaged with the development of healthy and balanced families. We're not here to stop that process, but what we are here to do is to develop the minds of those who are embarking on that process, to make sure that they're not of a sick mentality or mindset. So that there helps us to put it into context. Like, no, listen, ain't nobody here to block the path. But what we are here to do is to show you, the path that is more desirable for the results that you want. Chief had said on a segment maybe 5 years ago on a enlightenment and transformation segment, where he mentioned that, hey, if you say that you want to do a certain thing and this is how you want to do it, I'm not going to stop you. I'm here to give you, there's some things that I see along that path that you want to go on that maybe I don't think is wise for you to go, but maybe you want to go and experience it yourself. You know what I mean? So, but I'm telling you, it probably ain't wise. There's some things I see down there, but maybe you got to go and deal with it. In the islands, we say hard head make good soup. So, you want to look at that as far as why the process is in place. Why is it that your guardians and parents are the only people who would be eligible to actually block the process? We have some entrance into the chat. I'll scroll down a little bit.
That's the last thing.
Okay.
That's well, we had some people, filtering in.
Yeah.
So
Emma Precious.
Yeah, I don't think we greeted Emma Precious.
No, man, we ain't greet Emma Precious, man. All here, Shema, Emma Precious. Baba Chief, I channel some brother Zach. Chief. Yeah, man.
Yeah, peace, Chief. Peace, Akot Kashia. Naya responding to the question. She says, I think you can learn/observe a lot of a person in 15 minutes. Their appearance and how they speak, especially. I can just think of various times I've met males and sized them up quickly in my head. Okay, so how did that process go? Were your assessments accurate? How did you confirm that your assessments were accurate? Did you even need to wait around to confirm, like were the red lights flashing so brightly and the alarms going off so much that you were like, nope, just had to swerve around them?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things in our process of observing and learning, which is, what are you looking at? Anybody could put up a smoke screen, you know what I mean? You have veils and levels to it, so you can't really be sure that a person is actually showing you what you want to see. The same way you're observing us, we know you're observing us, and we're observing you. So, there is something, unfortunately, for a lot of people called manipulation. And I can manipulate you into operating in a certain way. That's one of the key things about sales. Is the reason why there's certain things right there at the beginning of the supermarket. So everything else that you're observing is just a smoke screen. Is the person of the same conviction that you were in? Did you represent the same culture and community? Would they be open and sincere to actually being honest with you based on what it is that they're giving? This is what the sisters were touching on last week with reference to what is it that you're actually able to see through the transition of those seasons.
Right.
So yeah, 15 minutes is a lot to observe, but is it directed? There are some recommended questions that we would definitely want to cover from the solutions book. And Chief had said it in our Sabbath ciphers. It also came up that if a person says to, if you ask a brother, what's his purpose, and he starts like acting like a DJ, then there's a certain thing that you may probably want to either pay much more attention to or repel right away. So yeah, 15 minutes you can observe a lot, but if that person doesn't have the integrity that you need him to have, observation is really meritless too. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it does help when you see a person though. I'll speak from my personal experience too, that some people have I look at body language, and their body language tells me, whether or not this person is even pleasant to be around. Now, granted, you might have met them in an unpleasant mood on an unpleasant date or in their unpleasant season, but if I see you and I'm speaking to you, and I'm speaking to you calmly and cordially, and I see, a bunch of twitching and, your eyes are rolling, your lips are twitching, waiting to talk before I talk, or the beginning of your sentence is in the middle of my sentence, that lets me know right away I need to back off, back off slowly.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you, and to build on it, there are certain people who've mastered the art of forcing reactions out of people also, just to see if they're really as grounded, or maybe to progress things a certain way. And it can be very sincere. It can also be just to get to the root of it. It can be through the process of very direct questions, like the example that was given. Not many brothers are used to assist within the first couple of trends of conversation, or perhaps the first date. What's your purpose? What's your plan for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 25 years? So it takes a brother who's really studied that process about himself, identifying his self-shape and really being grounded in his mission and vision to be able to answer that. So you've now forced a reaction from him, So his body language will shift based on that. And just like, again, the sales concept, they force a reaction from you. You see a couple come, hey, so which one are you going to make? Are you guys going to make a decision today just to see who responds first so you can know who's the person who actually signs who approves the money spending here, you know what I mean? So there are ways to force reactions out of people. So I definitely agree with the body language part, but it takes somebody very sincere, especially when you get into the interplay and the meeting of the minds now, to really not play with the feelings, and one thing I appreciate about Anu is Anu administration is zero tolerance for people who are coming to bring emotional havoc onto other Anu members. That he's Chief said in many occasions, you all are already sick. I'm not going to bring somebody to make you sicker or to cause more distress. I'm paraphrasing, Chief. My apologies. Cool, cool. But there's something building on that now. Moving into the next paragraph, he says, courtships need not be announced to the community. In truth, it is better to court in private. I thought that was very powerful. Think about the integrity of communication being protected. What some of the first things I think about then is like a non-disclosure agreement. So it's just like it's that unspoken of thing when the courtship papers are presented and the elders, have their dialogue. That's like Barbara Freeman and Mama Freeman when they were talking about Nana Kenya. Hey, this is what you touched on it just now. She has the absence of this, and he's an overachiever. So they're having this dialogue. We don't need no outside intervention. We don't need probably the brother or sister who are always in, thinking that they elder of everybody to make the contact. Hey man, I noticed this about sister so and so. I noticed that about brother and so. You may want to, consider this or consider that. No, that's.
Meanwhile, they just annoyed because they got cut off in traffic or something like that. He cut me off.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting about preserving the integrity of it, and then goes on to say that betrothal should be announced, but courtship should be done in the insulation from eyes of those who may have formed an unjust opinion about either party. And that unjust opinion can be emotionally driven. Somebody may have hoped that perhaps the sister may have been available for them to present courtship papers on, or maybe they were hopeful to get courtship papers placed from the sister to them, or that kind of thing. That someone beat you to the well, as they would say. Or it can be a number of reasons. It's so many different scenarios that one can, send their mind to as to why, you would definitely want to keep it to the chest, as they say.
But there's certainly more reasons to do that than to not do it. Like, I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get back into the chat. So Emma Precious says, to answer the question within the parameters of courtship, the man sets a plan for discovery. I'd imagine quite a bit can be gleaned in 15 minutes, enough to determine how we would move forward. Okay. Sister Kashia says, with a battle plan for each connection, there can be a lot covered within 15 minutes. The battle plan can consist of the questions and solutions and the goals of courtship outlined in the Anu way.
Okay, so what about when we scale down to 5 minutes? You got 9 months, every day, 5 minutes. Let's keep it at 15. We don't do the, even though we are the recommendations to scale it down to 5 minutes. And you want to ask yourself, why is it recommended and why is it said to be, it's a worthy thing. And I think about the Vision Command the Day segment that was offered to us in 2020. Whereas during that timeline, we were getting ready to prepare for for the solstice fast of that season, and we were reminded that fasting is about mastery. So in this process now, you're mastering discovery and you're mastering communication. That's but it's almost like a communication fast, if you may. But if instead of considering a fast, you consider regulation. So 15 minutes for 9 months, I think when we did the calculations, like 65 hours or 67 hours, 67 and a half hours. And that's a good bit of time, you know. And I do agree with Sister Kashia with reference to with detailed battle plans. But it's something that Kenya said in the solutions book, which was she did at certain points become frustrated with it because you have longer days. There's certain things you want to talk about. Because keep in mind now, this is your new brother or sister. You've been working together and, doing ministry work for who knows how long before the courtship process actually started. So, sometimes you may want to vent a little bit. Hey, this was the kind of day I had. Man, you wouldn't believe somebody buck up into my car. I got the raise, Well, guess what? I just finished my degree. You want to talk about these things, but then you got this battle plan. You know what I mean? So variable change and discipline are the things that also to be mastered. We're staying the course. So this is what we're doing. And if you think about how that translates into an actual betrothal and marriage actually steps, and this is what we're doing. No matter what happens, no matter what variable change comes in the midst, we stay within our ratios. We stay within our elements. You know what I mean?
Right, because this is still preparation for that meeting, for that pairing. So all of this helps you to structure how you're going to be behaving and communicating moving forward. Is not just a phase that you go through and then, oh, that was a long 9 months. Like, this is the start. This is the incline to the rest of how you're going to be moving, and you get to set the course as the both of you, communicate with one another. So, how much of that 15 minutes should be dedicated to that? Niall continues, I'm still single, so the short answer is no. Oh, she's responding to the qualification question. They didn't have the qualities I needed.
Emma Queer had asked her a question. Please, Sister Naya, how did you size the person up?
Oh, okay, skip that.
What were you evaluating? And her response is she is still single, so the short answer is no. They didn't have the qualities I needed. Some were close, and a couple I took time to discover more, but no matches. Okay, well, sorry, I mixed up. She was responding to the question initially.
Okay, the second one is a response to Emma Queer. Primarily, provider qualities of a man. They told me I was still old-timey in my thinking because I value family and made it clear I'd be home working, and that was always a problem. Which is interesting.
It's like you tell them they have to pay the bills while you stay over there. You say provider qualities. Sorry, sister, you got to clear that up. Yeah. You got to put some context to that for us so we can know what it is that you're talking about. What provision qualities? Let us know. Stand in the front of your qualities. Take the blow qualities. When you say you're working from home, what kind of work you doing from home? The brother on the hotel, you managing the hotel from home? What you doing? Let us, just so we could get some understanding. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, SS.
Yeah, but in that same vein, Sister Kashia brought up earlier the questions in the solutions book, which are a great start. And one of those things, and we'll get to that in subsequent paragraphs, but one of those things is determining who plays what role. Determining what roles that you're going to play in this union, because you're basically saying we're complements. So what I do, I take care of these things, you take care of those things. There's certainly going to be some sort of overlap, but for the most part, this is what I preside over, this is what you preside over. And then, it helps us to form a balance. So one leg isn't shorter than the next as we're moving along this path that we've set forth.
True.
Yeah, so it is interesting to see what kind of provider means to you.
Yeah.
And what staying home working means to you.
True.
Because you have home-based businesses. you know, you can certainly manage your home and stay home working in that front. So what kind of work are you going to be doing?
Yeah.
You know, and these are the types of questions that are going to come up.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that and this is not speaking directly to you, but you know, that continued self-assessment, you know, courtship should first be done on the self first. Your first ministry and your first courtship should be done for the self. You need to discover yourself. We again touched on this a couple of strongs ago. What is your self shape? What color are you emitting from that rainbow? Um, you know, based on your mission and your vision, or you as a sister, you know, your your power as far as your womanhood, you know, your qualities. Have you mastered all of the recommended qualities? And if you haven't, what are your strong points now that allows you to enter into a homestead to be an efficient helpmate? You know, what can you help with? So if you haven't really gone through those levels of self-discovery to really understand, you know, what your dean is, how are you squared, then, you know, sometimes you can have a very honorable person in front of you, but don't really know how to access your honorable balance with them because you haven't really gone to that level of self-discovery. You haven't healed your own emotional body or identified what your purpose is in the realm of the ancestor, or in the realm of the Most High. Sorry. Okay, so yeah,
Want to get the next one?
yeah. You mind? Gotta fix my glasses here now. What is it? All right. So one can learn very much or very little depending on how dedicated the individuals are in getting to know one another. True, true. But I'm also considering we are working in the community, so I'm getting to know you in that space as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were allowed to write letters.
So talking about
Nile in Kenya. Yep. And something interesting about that I actually wanted to point out with reference to it says, do not let the very first communication be a written one. An excellent digitally written communication leads to passive aggressiveness. Remember Barbara Freeman? He pointed out that you know, the telephone calls, it's not a natural mode of communication. There's a lot of energetic exchange that's not met. Not a, you don't experience that. You know, it's clear that he and his queen are big on energy because I don't know if you recall in the storyline when they sat, they actually, you know, touch the heads. They sat collectively and you know they soaked up energy.
Yeah, sitting like that for a minute too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like they were speaking telepathically to each other, and Niall made a description of it. So, you know, you want to get to that point. You know, that's what the old people say. Oh, I know what they're thinking. You know, that's my husband. I know what he's thinking. You know what I mean? So that I thought that was pretty interesting. A lot can be lost without voice tone modulation and pitch.
Yes.
You know, a lot can be lost in it.
Definitely.
You know,
a lot can be, you know, not inferred, but a lot could be assumed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
What
can
they
assume a lot. Yeah, what they mean by that?
Even just the way you said that just now, a lot of times that message comes across. What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
You don't know. It's like in Mandarin, wah, wave, wah. All they mean is same thing, but all of them mean something different, right? Based on how it's placed, you know. So, you know, you definitely want to take that in consideration. Again, pulling off the sister's um, comments with reference to. Sorry.
Another interesting thing, you know, talking about communication was when Niall and Kenya had this assignment where they had to do a writing assignment. So Niall had to write from his more feminine motive space, and Kenya had to write from a more logical, you know, linear space. And it was something that she wasn't really used to doing. And same could be said for Niall. So they got to see, you know, how difficult it could be to communicate using the faculties that they don't normally use.
And Naya, that actually touches strongly on, you know, what I was suggesting to you about Aki Antonio when he started the line of conversation with reference to body language. When you read Solutions, it's Mama Freeman stated that he's now getting more in tune with his feminine side. So that's that prompting now where something and someone pushes you into a certain space on a certain level of interaction that regularly you would have been resistant to because you know wanted to avoid it. That's also a form of passive aggressive, is looking to avoid the confrontation.
Right.
You know.
That's basically the definition of it. And you could think of it in another way too. Imagine a period in your life when you weren't really into working out, or doing any form of exercise or any type of movement. How difficult would it have been? Like, think about the difficulty it would be to force yourself to do it, knowing that you're resistant to it and also in control of whether or not you do it. And think of that as opposed to having a personal trainer who doesn't really care about how you feel. You're here, I am here, I'm getting paid to do this, and I'm going to make sure that you're sweating.
True.
No excuses. If you got excuses, go home. This ain't for you.
Now, taking what you said just now and also tying it into, that 15 minutes a day, and we've all agreed, or nobody has disagreed, rather, let me say that 15 minutes isn't enough with intent, all right? So that being said, is 15 minutes a day and 9 months, honestly, in your minds, enough time to navigate the discovery process? I know based on the calculation and the sister's reading last week, it shouldn't go over 9 months. But can you maximize on that time enough? If you think about it, some of us in our 30s, some of us in our 20s, we spend the rest of our lives with this person. We're going to have my case, I have 4 cruises and cruisettes. You know what I mean? Is it enough time for you to get to know the other person? Are you ready at the end of 15 minutes a day, as like I said, 65 to 67 hours of mind time, communication time? That's not including your dates and so on, all right, and the outings. Is that enough time for you to say, I've really discovered this person? Do you think that you can master self enough, master the discovery process enough to say, what, I'm comfortable with this, providing that your courtship matures into that point? You might be able to cut the mustard, like Queer touched on just now. Can you assimilate to the mission? And on the next side, does the man have a mission? You might get 2 weeks in the course, realize, man, look, I ain't got no mission for the sister. I need to break this off. I wasn't ready, Or the sister's elder might have to speak to his elder and say, look, man, bro, I ain't with it, bro.
Another thing we could also touch on is, what if things don't go according to plan? He can make a good plan, but if during the course of your 15 minutes, at minute 10, let's say y'all have a disagreement, and in your heart, you want to stress this out for a couple of hours now, because you want to make sure, I need to know what you meant.
Yeah. Let's get to this now.
Yeah,
it's a little offensive.
Even if it was voice to voice or FaceTime, how much can you hope to navigate the other person's pathologies if they haven't revealed themselves yet? They might reveal themselves in the form of disagreements and arguments. Everything could be peachy keen for the first 2 months. Like I think Shema had mentioned that she said most people are on their best behavior in the first couple of months. So what happens when they had a rough day and they come home and they can't really deal with the mask right now, and then you have an evening check-in and you just offload on them, or even if you don't go to a job, even if you have employees working under you, or if you run your own business, what if that deal falls through and you really wanted this to happen? You're really betting on this thing to happen.
Yeah.
So looking at those seasonal changes as well, you've got to be able to scratch the surface of what the person is presenting to you, like we were speaking of in the beginning, and get to the parts that may not be so pretty. Yeah. And when that happens, can you still dedicate your time and energy to only 15 minutes? How much of that how long are you going to, harbor that feeling? Can you hold on to that until the next day?
Yeah.
This is, and like I was saying, can you really hold on to that?
Yeah, and are you breaking the agenda? Some brother might give you an agenda. Okay, this is our agenda. for the next 14 days is without communication based, and it might include things like going over study material, just to see where we're at on certain levels. You know what I mean? So, are you going to defer from that agenda to insert the agenda of wanting more clarity? You know, so some of those things have to be considered. And, something also when you were talking about the bad day idea. Chief touches on in the way that a man's woundment can be the one who receives the major brunt of his hostility. I'm paraphrasing. Um, if the man is imbalanced, he can definitely mistreat her.
Right.
If he's not balanced. So all that discovery again, self courtship. Are you carrying around? So the reason why we're here, we sick.
Yeah.
Our ancestors knew we was going to be idiots. That's what I'm paraphrasing, Chief. Sorry.
Yeah, they knew we were gonna. They put it on the walls.
Yeah.
These people are gonna figure out.
On the spoons, eat like this. Yeah.
They're gonna figure out how to have sex, how to eat, how to heal themselves. Just put it on the wall. But definitely, that man has to be able to make provisions, even for the disagreements, to say, okay, I'm gonna make sure that everything's supposed to last for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If everything goes over time, let's say she does need clarification on something, and you can't assume that she's going to understand what it is that you're saying to her in the way that you're saying it. Someone had said communication is difficult because I got to take what something means to me and make it mean roughly the same thing to you. And at the beginning of the courtship, you're still getting to know each other. You're still feeling out each other's rhythm. So it's going to take some time before you can even gel with 15 minutes. You might have 10 minutes of awkward silence the first couple of calls, or you might hit it off right away. Is that chemistry going to be there? And can you two really get over yourselves in order to address the mission?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Boils down to how you start. So if your elders are present, there are certain things that you and your elders would have covered. You're not going to be an irrational brother, so arguments will be limited. You won't be a sister who can't really get out of her own way. So offenses or you two being petty towards each other or not being able to communicate will be limited. You'll be doing work in the community as a collective to some degree or the other. So there is a level of understanding the personalities. But now if you didn't have an elder present, if you don't have a chaperone present, I see this process is becoming much more difficult. Much more difficult. Just going off here, hey man, look here, I'm gonna put in some courtship papers, man. What do you think about this? From the time you enter the direction that way, there's a lot of things that are now in the garbage can. You might, your courtship might even get thrown there. So I just want to put that back out there. How the process is going to start really determine.
Right, right. And Naya says it pretty concisely too. She's saying I need direction. They didn't have plans, and she's trying to condense super long answers.
Yes, I guess I need direction, and they didn't have plans. She's referring to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you probably want to go into some explanation of it. So we definitely appreciate the consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
What if you had to condense that when you're on the phone now?
Yeah.
And the brother you're courting asks you, why didn't it work out? These other brothers who approached you. You got 5 minutes. Would 5 minutes be enough? It's voice to voice now, so you don't have to worry about your fingers getting tired. Or running out of space in the YouTube comment section. But is that enough? Okay, Akuya, giving some guidance to Naya, read the Anu courting and also the section that describes the woman. And Des says his ability and confidence in planning and guiding and leading can be picked up in 15 minutes a day or less, as well as my ability to submit, be receptive, and respect him. Yeah, and there's gonna be some kinks on both sides. Like Albert Cruz had mentioned, what, 3 times now, we're all sick. You know, we grew up in a sick society and a sick culture, speaking a sick language.
Yeah, we like bacon.
Yeah.
We like bacon and Burger King.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, honestly, when you get on a journey, right, you realize all those things you're done. I'm just using food, right? Because everybody kind of down. Food really dictates a lot of your culture, right? So, or a lot of way you do things in your culture. So, if you think about it, as simple as it was, some of your food choices before you start to become much more conscious as far as what you put into your body temple, you start to realize what it was that you really consumed. I want you to look at that also as the indulgence of information, the indulgence of your journey and spiritual walk, the insights that you take from people, the people that you want to put yourself around. Consider all of that your grades. Okay, is that Checkers? Is that Burger King? Is that hummus? Is that the produce market?
And bear in mind, all of this stuff, you didn't come up the womb saying, give me the bacon.
Yeah.
Someone put that in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And they put it on your plate in front of you for years and years and years before you really looked at it and like,
still smell good.
What am I eating? What am I eating?
Yeah.
What am I putting into my body?
Be like Locke's wife.
Yeah.
Heavy with salt. Can't leave it alone. That bacon smell good. Keep on calling me. Pookie saying, keep on calling me, man. Keep on calling me.
That's probably why she looked back. So put some bacon on the
stove. Keep on calling. But the truth is, the life keeps on calling. That's why you got to stay directed.
Yeah.
That's where community elders really, really, really prove their value to you. You want somebody to nudge you, yo, bro, let's move.
Yeah, and it's not really a peer-to-peer nudging. Like, that was kind of nice, what you just did.
Yeah. The chief said something, you didn't get punched in the face, Yeah, man.
So Kashia says, when we remove the conditioning of the secular world and its precepts on what relationships are, we can then see the value of courtship and its necessary processes.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, yeah, what we were just saying.
Yeah.
These are, again, things that were presented to you before you really had a chance to sit down and scrutinize them. You were told that these things were correct.
Yeah. So don't substitute tofu for bacon.
A lot of comments in it. It's interesting. I had read an article that mentioned how sometimes they fry tofu in bacon fat to keep it solid, which is like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I intentionally use that example when you're looking at the process. I'm pulling from us who perhaps thought about dating as opposed to courtship. And as we start to make this journey more and become much more indigenous in thinking, if you may, there are times when we really still try to fashion a reality that we kind of stepped away from. But because we're doing with people who we maybe consider our alike, or people who are thinking similar to us, but we still try to keep it as much like it was over there. Mm-hmm. We still want to go to, this popular franchise, Applebee's or something like that, as opposed to maybe a poetry reading or maybe a museum for an exhibit that's coming in town.
Yeah, we get the veggie spring rolls from Applebee's.
Yeah, be good. Right. Yeah. What type of oil do you use in this?
Yeah. With that oil you want to see.
Yeah. Not everybody who dread is down for the cause. Outcast told us that, you know what I mean? So
yeah, y'all talking a lot. Okay, let's see where are we. How many months are we into a courtship? Brothers may not disclose, so if it's been weeks, there are things to learn first. What you talking about, queer? I don't know what that's a reference to. Des says, especially with the visual communication like FaceTime. Naya says, maybe I need to make it clear I've never courted in this manner. As you're discussing it, I'm learning and I understand more of the meaning of the question as it goes into the courting process. So these were brothers approaching you trying to date. So they're already coming from a different cultural paradigm. So already there was like a misalignment there. But like you said, you're learning about it too. So you're still in transition from that dating into the courtship. I would definitely recommend that courtship versus dating again, because Chief, makes a good, clear delineation from between the two, and it helps you to understand, what we've been doing before versus what it is that we're striving to engage in and perfect as we take on this new culture and this our new way of moving through the world. um exactly, clear, we're all learning. Naya says, I have, but as it says, discuss it, and this is the only space I have for that because I don't know anyone interested. I've misunderstood things and got clarification from a video. Okay, well, I don't think, communication with everyone is restricted to this space. And you can always leave comments under all of the videos that we've done. If there's something in particular video that you have questions on, Anyway, it's free. You can get it. Look through the glossary or what's it, the table of contents. Find subjects that, at least is what I did at first. Find subjects that you weren't clear on, or that you were shaky on, and read them over and see what it is that's being said that you're reading and that you're saying out loud, because this is something that's to be read out loud, so even your ears can pick up on it. It's similar to the digital communication. You're just seeing this thing and your mind is being triggered by what it is that you're seeing. You're not even seeing it out loud, to where you might be able to say, is that really the tone of voice that they're using with me right now? Or did I conjure that up in my mind? It's a different experience when you read it out loud versus, actually looking at the words and skimming through it.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend the Anu way. It helps to clarify a lot of these cloudy areas that we all have when we're making a transition from one paradigm to the other.
Yeah, there's something else that I definitely would recommend as a philosophy for you to walk through is the emptying of the cup. There is a certain mindset that one has to have when you're looking at courtship to be a success in this manner. And that mindset is expressed at the beginning of the Anu when it speaks to the celestial ember and the oscillating force. So you want to look at what your source is. And in the Anu spiritual training, it speaks about the components of the self, which is the soul, the spirit, the mind, and the body. And the mind and the body are different. So if you talk about the divine mind and the flesh brain, which is the body, so now you're getting into how you're experiencing life, how you're exchanging with reality. And of course, that exchange with reality is based on your mindset. So naturally, the way that you approach family is also based on your mindset. And if the way that you approach family is based on your mindset, that means your mindset should be conditioned a certain way. You're actually looking at now embarking on a journey of being brought into somebody's homestead, in this case, a community, and actually creating a homestead or being the vessel that would be the helpmate of a Anu man to actually create a homestead with. So, those things you want to consider. So, don't come into it with how you thought about things before. This is reformation process, empty the cup so that something more edifying and nutritious can be actually brought to you. Come off the Coca-Colas and the bottled natural drinks, and start going to the fresh market and help the brothers then make something natural for you, and then learn the recipes and take it home and do it yourself. And I'm using these examples purposefully. If you think about them and you categorize them into what courtship and learning and discovering yourself and other people are, and belonging to a community, One of the first things mentioned before family is community. First thing that's mentioned before community is your journey with the Almighty. And that's how the Anu way is walking you into preparation of family. And the first thing that's mentioned you in family is generational curses. Why are we still single? Why are we here still in this position? In most cases, because the way I, presented my mindset and my viewpoint is how we started the process in the first place. This is the reason why they're ending with the results that they're ending in. It's because we didn't address certain things. Have you courted yourself for 3 seasons yet? Again, do you know your self shape? You know what I mean? So those things are what you want to consider also. Empty your cup first. Don't enter this with the mindset of learning based on what you've learned already. You got to do some unlearning also. Now, I'm not saying throw away the shoes, because, there may be some things in that foundation that you need to go on your path. And Chief has even mentioned that, don't let communities wreck that rainbow. The first thing is you making a choice what God you're going to serve. So I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, man. Another thing that I think would be a good idea is to look at Chief's segment that he did on a recent Shabbat, where he spoke about the cycles. Those cycles that you're dealing with. Talking about the 7-day cycles now. You're taking time from dealing with the external, and you're ceasing your external work to deal with your internal work. So as you court with the external, being this Anu culture, and this is helping you to reform and reshape your internal. Take that 7-day cycle, that 7th day, to really cease from everything external, and in a sense do the discovery on yourself. Ask yourself some questions. Measure yourself every 7 days to see how much you're actually changing. What ideas don't you have anymore? What questions don't give you pause anymore? What questions still give you pause? All of these things help you to reform and reshape your internal environment, and keep a journal with you. Write down questions that you may not be able to answer in that moment. Because I guarantee you, if you try to put it in the back of your mind, like, I'll think about it later, you're going to forget it. And it's going to come up in a much uglier form. So write it down, look at it, read it out loud, and let it marinate. But continuously reflect on what it is that you're doing during your 6 days that manifested in your 7th day. You got there because of what happened the 6 days prior. It's a cumulative series of events. And if you don't pause, it's going to keep accumulating, and it's going to be like a snowball, and you're going to crash. And you're going to wonder why you're feeling so tired, why you're feeling so burnt out. It's because you're not taking the time to not only not work, but to do the internal work as well.
True. It's funny that you mentioned that. Let me rephrase that. Not funny. It's synchronized that you mentioned the work, because through my heavens just now, the whole thing I was thinking about leading into the thought process that you sent us down was the journey that we are on to complete the work of the Almighty, our purpose that was implanted in us when we came here. So it's me observing you doing your work of the Almighty, and you observing me doing my work of the Almighty, and the way we align to actually complete this work as a collective that really is our family's mission. The manifestation of the Almighty is the original man and the original woman coming together to create. Whether that be physical being, legacy, both, so on and so on. So if that is the case, what work are you doing for yourself first? What is the Almighty's work that you're tasked with yourself? And when your family mission now starts, have you completed your level of work and done your prerequisites within your heart of hearts before you actually decided to come into the space of this king? Because as a woman everything now assimilates you into his space. So those individual imprints that you would have had that you wore around yourself, those things are done now. You're now house of this.
And the same goes for, if you're looking to start a house,
Wow.
so you coming into this thing, and like Barbara Freeman, his first question to Nile was, what are your intentions? What do you intend to do? And that question is a lot deeper than it seems, because you have to really have a plan. You gotta not just have an idea or have a dream, but you have to actually put pen to paper and say, this is going to take this long. This is what I need to do. These are the supplementary skills that I need in order to support this skill that's really important for my goal. It's almost like a tree that you're making that's branching out and letting you know each of the things that you need to do, each of the benchmark marks that you have to hit. But like Nile, he had a plan. He had a real good plan. But Mama Freeman came in with that balancing aspect now, which is what a lot of us don't have when it comes to the elders that we get our advice from. You might have an elder man, but no elder woman with him to balance him, or an elder woman with no elder man to balance him. And you may not even question whether or not they've qualified themselves to, assist you. I think it was during the Orisha series. Oh, I think that video you mentioned earlier was from the Ori from that Orisha series. Yeah, but there was another one. I think it's like 10 tips or 10 things that you need to know if you're starting an Orisha journey. And one of them was, when you find an elder, find you an elder who has made it. You don't want to be taking advice from a single person.
Chronically single.
Yeah, a chronically single person. It's like trying to be a track star, but your coach only has one leg.
Yeah.
They say, back in the day, I used to smoke them. Smoke those.
Yeah, like Brother Zach said on some of his segments, one particular segment when he spoke about the thoughts, it's really all about, not really, how you're thinking and receiving things and sending things. This is where that 15 minutes really becomes important, because now you're able to be straight and direct, knowledge, what are you looking, what are you listening, what are you observing? How is the manifestation of that knowledge now coming into movement, into motion, into reality? And then, of course, manifestation. Then, of course, now the understanding, okay, how are the two coming together? So,
and this is what you communicate on. And that's basically the gist of what we wanted to share.
Yeah.
Your communication has to be guided. It has to be directed by elders. And it also has to, go by the guidelines and regulations that they set. Don't try to work your way around them. Don't be like when you went on those church retreats and you keep checking in on the chaperones to see if they fell asleep or not. They used to do those church lock-ins. Or your older cousin who had to take you to the movies and you keep checking over to see if they're there, trying to squeeze something. You don't care what you reach for. You just want to squeeze something just to know that you got away with it. This isn't something that you want to play with. This is something that you take very seriously. And this is not something that you rush into either, out of desperation. But we'll get into that in further paragraphs as well.
The work of the Almighty. First ministry of self. First ministry is ministry of self. First set of courtship is courting yourself. Discover yourself so you can know what it is that you're giving to the person. You got to court yourself if you're going to make a 5-15-year plan. You got to court yourself if you're going to know what it is that you're going to be bringing to this brother to help him with.
And having a guide and an elder for that is also indispensable.
Yeah, man.
But with that, we're gonna sign off. We're very thankful for all of your participation. Chat was lively today. Sisters were sharing a lot of, wisdom with each other. So give thanks for your participation in this space. You all be well, and We will see you on the next one. Till then, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.